All right, look, so with the shooting we had today, this is something we honestly need to start talking about.
Oh boy, I think I know where this is going.
Right, because it's been confirmed that the shooter at the Minnesota Catholic school identified as trans.
Yep, I was right.
But we have to start asking the question, is there a pattern here? Right? Because what percentage of Americans identify as trans? Right? That number is amazingly low. All right, but what percentage of shootings are by that very small amount of people?
0.11%. About 0.1%. There, I answered your question. Are you done, or do you have more misleading to do?
Right, like if we look at the Denver school shooting, both suspects identified as trans.
Wrong. Only one did.
If we look at the Aberdeen shooter, identified as trans.
Yes.
If we look at the Nashville shooter, identified as trans.
Yes.
Now, the shooter in Uvalde has not been confirmed to identify as trans, but their friends have said they identified as non-binary.
No. What you didn't bother to Google is this. Images of 3 separate trans women were shared online purporting to be of the gunman and leading to a barrage of abuse. The inaccurate claims were also amplified by U.S. politicians and political influencers, some of whom also more broadly linked transgenderism to violence. Users posted an image of a trans woman who slightly resembled Ramos, the Uvalde pew-pewer, along with a link to her Reddit profile and baselessly claimed that she was the pew-pewer. No, there is no evidence to suggest that the Uvalde pew-pewer was trans.
And it's the same case with the Georgia shooter.
Yes, it is the same case with the Georgia pew-pewer. There is no evidence to suggest that they are trans. Literally an 11-second Google search. No evidence Gray is transgender. The suspect in the Georgia school pew-pewing has not been identified as transgender by any reputable news organizations or by law enforcement officials. A press release from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation refers to Gray as, quote, he and a, quote, son.
Get to the Iowa shooter, gender fluid.
No. Now, this one was about a 25, 30-second Google search, so I don't blame you for not doing that one because that's a lot of work, yeah? But there is no solid evidence confirming how Butler self-identified, Newsweek reported. Authorities did not comment on his gender identity. Not even Newsweek was calling him non-binary or gender fluid.
Philadelphia shooter, identified as trans.
Wrong again. The suspect has not identified themselves as trans. They have only identified themselves as male, Khalif said at Wednesday's news conference.
And the Colorado Springs shooter, identified as non-binary.
Well, congrats, you got that one correct. So that means your list of 9 supposed trans or non-binary people who commit these mass pew-pewings is really only a list of 4. 4. And considering what I said earlier, that 0.11% is the total number of percentage that trans or non-binary people make up as mass pew-pewers, you can see how reality more closely aligns with my fact check than with your misinformation.
This doesn't mean in any way that trans people are violent. And I'm not trying to make that assumption. But we can all agree that people that identify as trans are a very small percentage of the population. However, they have started to make up an increasingly larger percentage of violent shooters.
Yeah, they're over 0.1% now, remember? 0.11.
And look, you're welcome to be as delicate about that as you want, but it's definitely something that we need to talk about. It's definitely something that we need to look into.
Really? Because I would think the more important thing we should talk about and look into are the stats of the actual demographics of mass pew-pewers. Men. 94.6% of mass pew-pewings are committed by men. And what kind of men? Oh, that's right. White men. That's right. A majority of mass pew-pewers are not only committed by men, but by white men. Why are we not looking into those statistics? And you know how much of a problem trans mass pew-pewers aren't? Check it out. The claim that trans people are disproportionately responsible for mass violence in America comes up every few months, and it has never been true, Jensen said. I'm aware of no evidence to support the claim that transgender people are disproportionately responsible for mass violence events in the U.S., including pew-pewing at schools. Jensen said, in fact, the data suggests quite the opposite. But who is this Jensen guy anyway? Well, that would be Michael Jensen, research director at the National Consortium for the Study of T-Word and Response to T-Word. In fact, since the start of 2023, Jensen's research has identified more than 1,000 mass casualty plots when the perpetrator clearly intended to unalive or injure as many people as possible. And he says, quote, "You can count on less than one hand how many of those were perpetrated by a transgender individual." Anyway, the whole point of this video is to debunk your bullshit, obviously, and to push back against the dangerous rhetoric that you just broadcast all over the internet against the trans community, making them even more of a target than they already were. But more importantly than that, I want to offer you a piece of advice going forward. When gathering facts and figures for your future videos, I want you to turn to experts like Michael Jensen. Right? They're experts in their fields. They're researchers. Turn to the journalists who are covering the experts and applying their findings to real-world scenarios. Turn to these people and turn less to the Facebook memes that you like to gravitate towards, because those just make you look like a silly goose on the internet. And you've been there. You've done that. Try something new.